something serious needs to change in the head of a South African black man. There's a serious paradigm shift that needs to happen in the psychology of a black man. We have a destructive tendency. We are destroying our families. We are destroying our societies. We are the ones beating up our wives. We are the ones neglecting our kids. And if you are busy going around making kids and not taking care of them, who must take care of them? Uramaphosa, go 350. Ugogo has been replaced by television. Television is what tells us stories that create the status quo of a society or the principles and the values of that particular society. We can't in one breath say young people should behave like this, but we are showing them something else on TV.
And TikTok. We
can't say young people should abstain from sex and then busy with TV, Muzi Mthabela, busy when the sex, any show that I do, I'm involved in some sexual activity. And I'm not even married to the people I sleep with on TV. You need to arise and shine. And yeah, we Dagada, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop calling yourself Skepsel Samudimo. Give yourself a new name. I was saying to young people the other day, I want you to write down a list of names and then choose one. What is your name? Not Muzi, not Tsepo, not Tabo, but what is your name? What name do you want to call yourself? That a name that will resemble your destiny. A name that will put you a step forward. Whenever you call yourself by that, it takes you a step closer to your destiny.
Welcome to the Fix Africa podcast. Today's guest is a renowned actor. I'd say one of the best actors, male actors in South Africa. He's an editor as well. He's a former model, and he's a father, and he's also a believer, a Christian. Looking forward to having this conversation. Welcome to Fix Africa, Muzi.
Thank you so much, Baba.
I think one of the interesting things when I was doing some research on you was finding out that when you were growing up, you wanted to be a pastor. And it was something I could relate to because I grew up in a Christian family, so grew up in the church.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me a bit about growing up. What were those aspirations?
I come from a Catholic family. I was raised in my maternal side of the family. My grandparents, my grandmother Ukoko, was a very staunch Catholic. So we went to church every Sunday, and I grew up in the rural areas, Emakutu, in Sentumeni, north of Durban. And there was this segregation in that area because it was a company, a sugar milling company. So so there were white people's houses and there were Indian people's houses and then there were black people's houses. So you could just tell Uti the white people's houses were nice, the Indian houses were nicer, and the black people's houses were okay. And then we never really used to mix much, except on Sundays. There used to be this priest who would come to our church. And my family, funny enough, the Mzolo family was the only one that used to go to church because people in Makaya, they were like very traditional. And now we had come from Durban. We came to live in Emakutu. So there was this tall man, was tall and he had a very strong presence. And you know, when the priests are wearing the cassock and they are moving in the name of the Father. So I used to look at this guy and admire him and think, wow, I'd love to do this one day. But it was, as I grew up, I realized it wasn't just an admiration of this great white man who came to the community of black people. And then I sort of developed love for God from a very young age. And as a result, I wanted to be a priest when I grew up.
Interesting. It's very interesting, the things that we find inspiration from while growing up, that even in those dark situations, we're still able to find that inspiration.
I think the interesting thing is that Nkulunkulu can use anything to further his own agenda at the end of the day.
Yeah. You know, I mean, just listening to your story, there's lots of narratives where people have said that, you know, black people should not be involved in religion. A lot of people have said, but this thing, is it a white man thing? There's been a lot of I think through the years, the youth, as well as people get more freedom of speech on all these platforms, a lot of opinions have come up and a lot of different perspectives have come up. What do you think about today's world? I mean, back in the day when you were growing up and when many of us were growing up, church used to be a thing where I don't remember a day I missed church on a Sunday, you know. But in this day and age where people are growing up, we're seeing that things are a bit different. What do you think about this day and age where that is happening?
A lot is good and a lot more is bad. It sort of reminds me of the scripture in Isaiah where the Bible says, darkness shall cover the earth and deep darkness the people. I think the more people move away from being God-centered families to being liberated, whatever that means for them, I think the more we shift from the principles of God and the principles of the Bible, is the more we try to find our own solutions. And we know our solutions are flawed because man is fallen. So I think there's a lot of darkness that's happening and people call it the light. The sad part is that, as Jesus said, for example, in Matthew 24, that in the end times, people will cry foul and they will say, you are judging me, you know? So these days you can't say anything to anyone because everybody has an opinion, and anybody who has a camera, who has a phone with a camera can start a podcast and speak their own minds, regardless of whether they've got content or regardless of whether they have a something to say. For example, earlier on we were talking, Uti, why don't you start your own podcast? And my answer is, until I know what I need to say, or until I know that God wants me to do it, then I will start. Because you don't just want to have a podcast just because there's an opportunity for you to do it. You have to have a purpose. I feel like these days, anybody and everybody who just wants to speak has an audience and has a platform to speak, regardless of whether they have something to say. So I think when you look at the world today, there's a lot of moral degeneration, which we call it progression. There's a lot of regression, which we call progress. There's a lot of darkness, which we call light. And there's a lot of ignorance masquerading as pseudo-intellectualism.
I think, you know, the things you mentioned are so important because we live in a day and age where people sort of feel that being liberated or doing whatever you want actually gets you further in life. And I think, you know, we look at the previous generation where to them being liberated meant going to school and learning. Being liberated meant following what your parents guide you and say. Being liberated meant dressing in an appropriate way for an appropriate setting. You know? And we're seeing the opposite in this generation where to them it's being liberated is I can do whatever I want. I don't have to follow these rules. To them being liberated means I can dress in whatever way I want, no matter where I'm going. And
in church?
Even in church or at a funeral. You know, where the rules are sort of, it's like the opposite is now happening. I always, you know, look at where the world is going today and I look at, you know, the principles that people have said. And I always try and say, how are we going to join these two generations? Because I think the danger becomes if we look and we judge from a distance, are we not leading them to a further disarray? You know, but also if we stand forth and we say, look, stop this, stop that, are we not also limiting what they would call their creativity or the way that they see things? What do you think is that balance? Or are we supposed to be staunch and they're supposed to conform? How do we balance this old generation, the new generation, and this new culture that they're talking about?
It's always interesting when you look at history. It's usually young people who challenge the status quo and therefore bring about change. If you look at the likes of Baba or Nelson Mandela, they were young people when they started Umzabalazo. If you look at the likes of Che Guevara, they were young people. Mahatma Gandhi was a young man. Shaka Zulu was a young boy. When they brought the new status quo, I don't think there's anything wrong with challenging the current status quo of things. But I think young people need to be guided because we tend to want to do anything that we think is right. There's a saying, once I was young and I had a lot of energy but didn't have enough information. And now I've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom but not enough energy to carry out my ideas. I think the balance needs to be there because we are a culture that we have become westernized, thinking westernization is progress. We no longer have a regard for Okoko. I'll just make a very simple example. Ogogo nomkhulu in society were held in very high esteem because of the wisdom and knowledge they had. They had the influence on how to run things. For example, at home when I grew up, my grandmother, uMasithole, used to be the one who told us inganekwane. Inganekwane, we know ukuthi there were stories that had lessons in them. Ugogo has been replaced by television. Television is what tells us stories that create the status quo of a society or the principles and the values of that particular society. We can't in one breath say young people should behave like this, but we are showing them something else on TV.
And TikTok.
We can't say young people should abstain from sex and then busy with TV, Muzi Mthabela, busy when the sex. Any show that I do, I'm involved in some sexual activity. And I'm not even married to the people I sleep with on TV. This is what has replaced Ugogo. The stories that Ugogo told were stories that built the society. We need to ask ourselves if the stories that we show on TV, are they demonstrating the society that we want to see now? You look at crime, for example. Every story has an element of criminality. Every story has an element of sexual immorality. Every story has an element of witchcraft. And then we turn around and say, behave like an angel, but we are demonstrating usatane to them. So I think it is up to us as young people to show them where the true north is. We can't say young people are lost, but we now, as the campus, we are not functioning.
I think that's so profound because what you're saying is that the minds of young people are being controlled by what they see. And what they see is being created by people that have got bad sort of intentions, the sex. And I think what you're saying is so profound because we look at our HIV rate, we look at our teenage pregnancy rate, we look at the rape rate in the country. These are things that they are watching every single day, the crime you're talking about, and all these things. And I think that's so profound. But somebody might argue and say, then we need to change the issue, right? And I wonder, where does the issue lie? Is it that people are not funding projects that are good? Is it that producers themselves or channel themselves is giving people what they want to see? Because I've heard the argument of people saying, but hold on, if you do a good story, people won't watch. But I often say to them, that's not true. Because the churches are still full and there's no sexual immorality on a Sunday. There's no cash in transit. This is just a pastor preaching the word, which people might say is boring. So I always wonder, where's the error here? Is it the producers? Is it where's the rot in the industry that's causing this?
A television or a media, for example, it's a mouthpiece. The problem is not the mouthpiece. The problem is the person behind the mouthpiece. What are you trying to tell the nation? I remember there was a time when there were a series of about 8 stories. They were called The Hardline. There were stories that intentionally told storylines that needed to build people. And they were very good stories, and a lot of people watched them. So my point is, what is our intention? What kind of society are we trying to build? Who has the voice? For example, let me make an example. Zulus used to circumcise, for example. At some point, it took the king to say, I'm not going to have people going to the mountain instead of going to fight. So a king stopped it because he had another objective, which I think he accomplished in terms of building a nation. My point is, we need people in authority to stamp their foot down and say, this is the kind of society we need to build. And this is how we're going to use our medium to build this society.
An agenda that they set.
What is the agenda, Namhlanje? I always make this example. One of my favorite presidents in South Africa was Thabo Mbeki. Because Thabo Mbeki, as a leader, he laid out his vision to the nation. We knew the heart of Thabo Mbeki is in African Renaissance. We knew the heart of Thabo Mbeki was in corporate social responsibility. As a result, we started seeing companies inviting young people, bring a girl child to work, and we started seeing companies doing things in society, in communities, because it took a leader to say, this is my vision, and people followed. What is the vision today? What is the vision of the current government? What do they want to accomplish? What is it that we can rally behind and say, this is what the government wants to do, this is what leadership is trying to accomplish, therefore we are rallying behind the government to do this. So unless and until, and I don't want to make the issue of fixing the society or fixing the nation or fixing Africa a responsibility of politicians. It's a much bigger job for them to do. It's about you and I. What are we doing? It's about what is Muzi doing in Mphathini? How many young people am I mentoring? How many young people are you mentoring? It's about not spending 2,000 rands buying ibhodlela likatshwala and you spend imali namantombazane eshibhini. But it's about looking around. How many young people can I call? I usually say, you can even start with 5 young boys. Have a braai once a month. Every month they know which Saturday, first month of the Saturday or whenever, we are meeting Mpho Dagada. He sits down with us and we talk. Gents, how's it? Kamba kanjani? Hey, no man, lo cherung pulling please. No, listen, Dwana, these things happen. It's not about, you mentioned something very interesting, funding. Who is funding these projects? This is one word that has destroyed the society. Everybody wants to do something because they want the funding. Where are the people who genuinely want to help the society? Tina, when we grew up, we knew ukuthi umuntu omdala is my father. Ubaba wakamakhelwane, ubaba Mthabela, but ubaba uSibiya is my father. Ubaba uDlamini is my father. If engibona ngenza into wrong emgwaqweni, I need to run. But we, Tina bantu abadala, we've destroyed the society because kunokuthi sisize ingane ezincane yize silala nazo. Obaba abadala balala nezingane ezincane. Izingane ezincane zilala namakhehla. Ogogo balala nezingane ezincane abafana abancane babathengela amapolo. So the rot starts in the head, and the head, it's you and I. So before we say young people are lost, we need to look at the campus, which is us. What are we doing? What am I doing to help young girls, for example? I know there's a school next to me where young girls can't even go to school when they are going through that time of the month. I could easily spend 500 rands, go and buy something, and they know kuno baba emphakathini who are taking care of us. They are our fathers. But namhlanje ingane zethu amantombazane, young girls basibiza ngo pops because that's how we treat them. You know, they don't call me ubaba. They call us, you know, they speak to us like we are their peers because that's what we have taught them. If we want to change this society, thina kuqala kumele sizinuka amakhwapha njengobaba, particularly obaba, because whether you like it or not, a man is the head of his society. A man is the head of his household. A man is a leader, naturally. If we don't take our position as men and lead our families and lead society, then we are going to complain and say, hey, labafazi, bafuna ukusicontrol. Bafuna ukucontrol because you are not a strong enough head. I don't think there's a woman who doesn't want to submit to a man. But women don't want to submit to a weak head. So Tina, we need to get our things together in order to fix this society. And we don't need to expect funding from a society. We don't need Oprah Winfrey to come and sponsor our programs. We don't need the sponsor. We just need a change of heart. Something serious needs to change in the head of a South African black man. There's a serious paradigm shift that needs to happen in the psychology of a black man. We have a destructive tendency. We are destroying our families. We are destroying our societies. We are the ones beating up our wives. We are the ones neglecting our kids. And if you are busy going around making kids and not taking care of them, who must take care of them? Uramaphosa, go 350. And we expect something to come of these kids. Because ukukhulisa umntwana is not just giving him money. It's about teaching them your principles. What have you learned through life? From your own mistakes, what have you learned? And then tell your kids, mntanam, I was asking my kid the other day, and she was like, oh, okay, no, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She knows, because I have Baba, then I need to make sure that I always look presentable. And I need to represent my parents as a kid. And now I have a responsibility of representing abantwana bami, because if I do something wrong, somebody's going to say, you know? So in order to fix the society, men need to change first.
I think, you know, from what you're saying, I've heard a lot of people say that if you fix the family, then you fix a lot of problems, because they always reference to say, a rapist can't come from a family and the family does nothing.
Yeah.
A criminal can't come from the family and the family does nothing.
Yeah.
A murderer can't come from the family and the family. So if you fix the family unit, you fix all the societal ills. Is it right to say that there's been some form of attack on the family unit? Because I think we're living in a world where you hear young people say things like, no man, marriage is one of the options.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many different words. Some say I'm polyamorous, some say, hey, it means I now have a partner for this long and then I change. There's so many terms that are out there. Do you think that there has been a coordinated attack on the family unit as we knew the family unit?
Ufuna ngishawa abantu ke manje. Ufuna ukungikhulumisa izinto ezibucayi ezingakhulunywa. But let's talk. We'd be lying to ourselves as people if we don't recognize and realize that there is an enemy of mankind. The enemy of mankind is very strategic, is very intelligent, and is forward-thinking. What we see happening today, it started many years ago. I can't remember who this person is, whether I can't remember their namings exactly, but I'll tell you. They had a 10-step program for the future. How they wanted to use the schools to push the agenda of darkness, how they wanted to use television to push the agenda of darkness, how they want to destroy family, and what are the steps to do that. What we see happening today is a result of those 10 steps. The enemy has been very intentional about destroying family. The enemy has been very intentional about destroying the identities that God has put in place. The enemy has been very intentional about the roles. What is the role of a man? What is the identity of a man? What is a man? We talked earlier on about young people challenging the status quo of things. But I think there should be things that should be standard. You can't tell me, for example, the other day I was watching some documentary on YouTube and this person was saying, and this was last year, April, February, around the time. He was saying there are 78 identities. From 2 to 78. And everybody needs to remember all of them. So if, for example, I say I'm a glass of water, and when you come and say I'm a cup of coffee, I can sue you. In America, people are getting sued for being misgendered. So everybody must know everybody's gender, and you must recognize everybody's gender. So it is an intention to destroy family. And once again, we go back to the male figure. Ube kuphi ubaba?
When all this was happening.
Yeah. Ube kuphi ubaba? Where are the men in society? Where was the man? Because you'll find a majority, let me just be frank and say this. You'll find that, for example, a majority of lesbians, they were raped by a father figure when they were young girls. And they grew up having an attitude towards obab. And the majority, maybe not a majority, but some of the gay boys, they were raped as little boys by a father figure, not mom. So there's a damage that men have caused, of which we are reaping the fruits of that damage that was caused. Somebody was saying, for example, not so long ago when we were talking about R. Kelly. R. Kelly was raped by a family member from the age of 7 to 14 for 7 years.
Sure, I didn't know that.
Because one little boy was raped by a man, he went around and messed up over 200 women. One little boy. So it's like you mess up one little boy and the boy is going to mess up 200 girls, and the girls are going to start having an attitude towards men, and they're going to hate men. Men are trash, mawashiso madoda, and all those things. You'll find ukuthi umsuka wazo zonke, it is us men. We have done so much damage. We are the ones who have destroyed families. Somebody will argue and say, yeah, but back in the day, the apartheid was very intentional about destroying the black family. They were intentional about where they put amashibini at the train stations. Yes. But we as a people, we need to now come together and say, what are we trying to build? What should a black family look like? Whenever you watch TV, there's a depiction of a fatherlessness in the movie. If you watch any American movie, the black man is always not there. Who's telling the story? Who's funding that story? So it is time that now we need to come and say, we need to come up with our own things. What we need to have our own stations. We need to have our own podcasts speaking this
Tell
word.
our own stories, yeah.
Telling our own stories, because there is someone out there who is deliberate at telling a specific narrative, and the more we see that narrative is the more we create that narrative, because you don't create something you've never seen. Uthi uHitler, tell a lie loud enough, long enough, and eventually people will take it as the truth. What have we been told on TV? Unfortunately, the enemy can make us go to hell and make us celebrate while going there, because we will call it liberation. We'll call it being liberated. We'll call it freedom. When somebody sold us the idea of freedom, what they didn't tell us was, if freedom comes under responsibility.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't be free to do anyhow. You can't be free to destroy yourself. The Bible says, all things are given to me. I have the right to do anything, but not all things
are permissible.
It says, all things are permissible, but not all things are good for me to do.
Yes, yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. So, even as we claim to be free, we need to realize whose agenda are we pushing, even though we may enjoy the journey of destroying ourselves. For example, as men, we would like to have as much sex as we want. But is it a good thing for us to do? Because if you go around and sleeping with everybody, you are busy collecting soul ties with every Tom, Dick, and Harry who has nothing to do with your destiny. You are busy carrying the spirits of people because when but you don't know what. And as a man, you have compromised your own standing. So I think a lot of the problems that we have, it is men that need to come together to fix them. I'll make one more example. If you go to any Jewish community, there are societies there that take care of the Jewish interests. If you go to the Indian community, there are organizations that look out for the Indian interests.
Yeah.
If you go to Amabun,
same
thing. Where do black people go? Bapho baba bamadoda who sit together and plan. I live in the South. About 7 years ago, I would observe how the Islam community, amadoda abo, they would come together in this one particular restaurant every night without fail. And they would come together, and you can tell these men are planning, they are plotting. And I said to myself, in the not so distant future, the South will be, the businesses in the South will be controlled by the Indian community. That's exactly what's happening. The garages, the restaurants, everything. It's owned by them. Why? Intention. Where are the men, black men? Tina's busy nama social media challenges. Siyajiva. Udaku yajiva. Other people are planning. Unless we start changing the narrative and start planning, abantwana bethu, they will forever remain petrol attendants and otela. Bashamatela 8 zabo. Because Tina, we didn't plan
for them. Yeah.
Black man needs to do something about his society and stop complaining, because somebody was saying the new trend now among black men is to date these thriving black women and living off of them. Where is our pride as men? Njalo Tina, we need to be omva kwezinye. We have a word in Yesizulu. It's a very painful word. Inkothangogo. Ugogo, it's that wooden shandies that we eat meat off.
Yeah.
Umto kota ugogo, after men have eaten, somebody else will come and lick that. The majority of us, we have compromised ourselves to a point where we lick ugogo after other men have eaten. So that's how degenerated we have become as a black society because of a man.
And I think what you're saying about media makes so much sense, because while growing up, I always tell the story that for me, I used to watch Generations while growing up. And you would see black men running a media company.
Yes.
And the wives were also there. All these characters sort of betrayed how black men were running this media company in Johannesburg, you know. And while we're growing up, we all thought, okay, we want to get there. We want to do that. But you forgive me for saying this, to say, I've realized that the stories have now changed.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched a bit of Skim Sam. I've watched, obviously, some of the latest generations, very few of it, but I've realized that aspirational factor of saying that, oh, there was a black man running a media company, Ezweni Communications, and they were doing big things, and there's a campaign, and, you know, you're just sitting there wondering and thinking, okay, this is all doable, you know. And I look at the latest stories that we've got now, and you are very right to say it's all sex scenes. All of these stories, everybody's watching them for these sex scenes, and all of them don't lead to the black man becoming successful. None of them are showing us the black man owning this empire. And I think in what you're saying, to say we must fix the way our stories are told. I think that's very important. But in your role, I mean, you've been on Generations, you've been a very successful actor there. What have you found prohibits the actors from playing those sort of roles? Is there no room for the actors to influence the story, to say, can we maybe not, instead of making this man an addict of alcohol, can we make him an addict of business deals? You know, can we, what's missing in that element?
The system. Once the system is set, it doesn't matter who sits on the throne. The throne will dictate what needs to happen. Even politically, you can do only up to so much, but the moment you sit on the throne, it will dictate to you what needs to happen. Young black executives and young black creatives invaded the space of media. Lo and behold, the moment they got there, they became like their predecessors. Wickedness is not a black or white thing. It's a human thing. It's a heart condition. Man is fallen. Black producers do to black actors exactly what white producers did to black actors. It's the system. You get there, you don't change the system changes you. You get there, they tell you, la la la. There's a lot of young writers who go and pitch stories, but the commissioning editors will tell them, no, you need to change this, you need to change that, you need to introduce that. This is not represented enough, so you need to change the storyline to that. You come up with your story. Any producer will tell you, they come up with stories, but only about 50 to 60% of what they pitched will be there. 40% will be what the station demands. They even tell you, that's how serious and intentional the system is. The point is, who controls the system? What is his intention about the narrative that needs to be told? Why is there so much witchcraft in black stories, but in white stories there's no witchcraft? Look at even advertising. Look at the billboards. They are telling a different narrative. The moment ungenekas ukoloko utshwala ubhiya, it's intentional. There is no mistake in this world. Everything is planned down to the T.
To the T, yeah.
I have a friend who was launching a book not so long ago. She was telling me that the reason she is self-publishing is because when you go to the big publishers, they give you a skeleton of how the book that they will support must look like, what narrative it must push. The intention behind what is being told, what people hear, what people see, it's on another level. Somebody wants to keep somebody subservient and somebody wants to be above there. So you can't just be a leader thinking that what you see is what you get. No. Somebody's pulling the strings somewhere. And they are very intentional about it.
About the strings.
And they will give you millions if you are going to tell the narrative that they want to tell, because they don't want to lose what they have.
Yeah.
You can't liberate people if you are a leader in this system of things. If you liberate people, then you can't lead them. You can't control them because they will be liberated. But keep them subservient by telling them stories. That's why black people are always dancing. That's why we always at Shisanyamas. That's why we're always doing these things, because it serves somebody's intention and agenda to keep them there. Don't wake them up. Let them sleep. Let them dance. Keep them dancing. Keep them happy. But right, maybe take one or two executives, give them serious money, but the rest
keep them there.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is so important, because I've heard this narrative, and South Africans tend not to believe these things. South Africans tend to believe a lot of stuff is conspiracy. A lot of people say, no, man, these things are far-fetched, And he was explaining the deep state.
Yeah.
And he was explaining to say, look, when you look at any government or any state, there is the guys that are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And there's somewhat what you call a deep state.
Yeah.
And what that deep state is an agenda that they are pushing.
Yeah.
And they're ensuring that they push that agenda. And he goes on to say that COVID was a project of the deep state. And he says the deep state knew that if they release a virus, they could make money out of it, they could do this. And he separates the virus from the agenda. And he says, look, there was a virus. It did kill people. Yeah. That's not the argument. And he says the argument is who launched that virus.
Yeah.
And he says if you go to the profits of the virus, the hospitals, the PPE, the airlines shares dropping, he says if you look at who made money from that, you'll find the deep state, And I think for me, it's very interesting to hear that the deep state keeping people entertained in the media space and sort of numbing their minds allows them to just continue making money because nobody's going to wake up and ask and say, where are my shares? Why am I not included in the mine that's being dug in my backyard? They're just going to say, oh, well, I can dance, I can drink, and I can do that.
We are grateful for the little we get.
Yeah, and we think that's all there is. Yeah. But, I mean, from those that are fighting the deep state, people like yourself who go out there and they tell it as it is and say, look, I'm going to stand for the truth and that's it. And in different ways that we do it. How do people support that sort of narrative? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that listen to you and say, you know what, we are ready. Some might even say, where's the church? We are ready to come and learn more, ready to come and support. How do they join you in this narrative?
I think the reason I do some of the things I do is exactly for that. One of the things I started a book club for young people like us. Because I've been very busy, I haven't been able to sit with them recently. But the intention of my book club is to sit with them once every 2 months, give them books, self-help and motivational books. I don't want to give them more romantic. No, I don't have time for that. When people read a book, they need to get something and learn something from it. I think we need to start reading. A lot of people don't read. We need to start reading, empower the mind. My grandmother was active until she was about 80, 85. She was reading, she was writing because she said, always keep the mind occupied.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't read. One of the things I do, I go to schools, I do motivational talks. I'm sure a lot of us can do that. Go to the schools. If people see you, they see your face and they admire you for whatever reason, go to them, go to young people, tell them, stay away from sex. You're too young to be engaging in sex. Stay away from drugs. I used to smoke weed. Tell them, I used to do this, I used to do that. And if you do this and then this is what happens, this is what's going to happen next. Do you want to get there? I usually ask them, have you seen Ipara Namhlashi? They say, yo, we see Amapara coming to school. Do you think they grew up wanting to be that? No, but they started with cigarettes and then they moved from cigarette to weed. They moved from weed to other things, but they never planned for the end. But that's exactly where they ended up because of the choices they made. So I make them aware of the choices, the importance of the choices that they make. So I think we all need to use our platforms, whatever platform you can get. You don't have to be an influential person. There's a term these days, the influencer. What are you influencing people to do? Njoba uyi-influencer. So you can't go to social media uveze izinqe namabele bese uthi uyi-influencer. Influencing ingane kabani ukuthi yenzeni? Uthi veze izinqe njengawe. So for me, it's about realizing the gifts that you have and use your gifts to help other people, but not to enrich yourself only, because there's this obsession with money, man, with modern society. We are so obsessed. Everybody wants money and they want it now. And they are willing to do anything to get this money now. You know? What happened to trusting the process? There's a process to everything, but everybody just wants to skip all the steps and get to the end results. Everybody wants to start a church today, and next week you want to have 4,000 members. Everybody wants to start something now, and And people say, go big or go home. No, start small. Never despise the day of small beginnings. Start small and grow. Tell young people. Some people see me doing things on social media. Maybe I'm dressed by this company, or maybe I'm going to that event and somebody comes and says to me, please wear my clothes and just credit me. And when I want to saying, "Swenkile lapana," you think I've got all this money and now you want to do anything by hooks or crooks. You just want to get there. I started working out, working in this industry in 1999 as an assistant editor, and I started working as an editor. I started working as an actor. I went to a lot of auditions. I went to a lot of workshops, acting workshops, in order to get where I am. But somebody's gonna see me today, and they're gonna want to be like me today. Everybody has a history, and our young people think izinto zizakalula. So we need to start teaching young people that there's a process to everything.
Yeah.
And we need to stop using them. Because nathi bobaba sibhizi nengane ezincane emakhoneni, and they end up not listening to us.
Yeah,
if I was busy
how
with
do you listen to somebody who's
obubhizi naye? You've seen their nakedness and izolo.
Yeah, and you know they're a father, and
you know. So I think immoral regeneration, it needs to start with us, and we need to go back to our society and see what can I do with us. So we lumkhuba we exodus of the moment you make it.
You leave the township,
Even if we are Puma, have a footprint there, do something, do a project there. Once every Saturday, I have a dream that one day, if I have enough resources, I can start a school of excellence or a school of leadership, you know, where young people can come once every 2 weeks. We sit there, we bring people like you, we bring a phenomenal young men and women who are going to mentor young people. I wish I could do something like that. You know, we can start that at us with 5 young boys, 5 young girls, a mentor young people. Every now and then, maybe you know, Easter. There's an Easter camp where you take boys and girls, maybe 50 boys and 50 girls from Ekasi. You are taking them to a camp. You are going to be teaching them about what it means to be a great human being, what it means to be respectful. What are the ramifications of being disrespectful? What are the ramifications of sleeping around as a young person? If they don't hear it from us, I'm telling you, there are young people that I meet today, and they would say to me, you visited my school one day and you said, and I even forgot what I said, but they remember it and it changed their lives. We need a lot more of the army of the light, if I may call it that. We need the army of the light to arise and make sure that we help our young people and sound the clarion call of goodness and righteousness.
No, I love what you're saying, you know, and I think one could tell that through life experiences, you've been able to build a very solid, structured way of thinking, which I love. What are some of the challenges that you've overcome? Because I've heard a lot of people say that, let me put it this way, they sort of say that, hey, the issue with Christians is that they look so holy that people sort of feel, hey, where I am with my struggles that I'm struggling with, I can't relate. You know? And I think they sort of forget that we've all encountered, we've dealt with things, or we've conquered things. What are some of those things that you've conquered that you think have been able to build you to where you are today?
I wouldn't say conquered.
Oh, you are still every day. You are still dying daily.
Yeah, I'm still dying daily. A boxer, when he's in the ring, his hands must always be here, ready to attack and ready to defend. The moment you think you've conquered, you think you've arrived, your hands will be here and you're gonna get knocked down. I think some of the things that I struggled with growing up, like a typical young boy. We were a group of young boys at Claremont. We called ourselves the Hammer Boys. We used to dance. We used to be trendy, fashionable, and obviously that is followed by girls, you know. So you start having intombi, you know, and as young people, you are told, you know, I've got girls in every area code.
Oh, it doesn't say girls, but okay.
That. So I think the challenge for me is that when you grow up, when having lived that life of thinking you are the ish, when you grow up and you realize you need to stop that, the habit is very deeply entrenched in you. It becomes very difficult to be a faithful husband to one woman if you lived a life of philandering as a young boy. If I didn't do some of the things I did as a young person, they wouldn't be difficult for me to stop today. Even worse, when you are working in the public space, then these things are here.
But that's profound what you said, to say, because the door got opened.
Yes.
That's the issue. To say somebody watching can say, don't even open the door.
Don't even open.
Yeah.
As a young boy, I know you'll be a laughing stock if people say, if you tell people that you are still a virgin at 25, you become a laughing stock. But nobody laughs at you 15, 20 years later when you are reaping the fruits of having lived a good and righteous life from the beginning.
That focus, that clarity.
I struggled with Ugiyeginsango for the longest time because I thought I was cool when I was smoking. And we thought we were cool, and maybe we were cool. But what that led to was not so cool. It was very difficult for me. I could have killed many people when I was drunk and driving. Fortunately, it didn't happen. I realized before it happened that, you know what, if you don't stop this lifestyle, you're going to end up in prison. It was very difficult to stop the bad habits that I started as a young person. Philandering, smoking, drinking, and swearing, because most of the time we are swearing because, you know, that was the lingo. You know, we started watching American movies. We used to love in New Jack City, you know, or Nino Brown, and we identified with those things. But when you have to now live in the straight and narrow, it becomes very difficult to let go of the old, and because the old man keeps raising his head every now and then to see if he can
have his way through.
If he can have his way with you. So I would say to young people in particular, live right from the word go. Read books from the word go. I wish I started earlier reading these self-help and motivational books. My first book, I think I read it, I was 19 years old. It was a book called Think Like a Winner. It was my father's book. I would encourage young people, start reading good books from the word go, because as you grow, this wisdom that you store in your heart, it sort of becomes part of your DNA. You come across a problem and you exactly know what to do. And when other people are crumbling around you, oh my God, what am I going to do? When in your heart, you know, no, toughen up, you know. I started reading a lot of books about the power of the mind, the power of the subconscious mind. It's amazing what this cool hair can do for you, you know, things that could have destroyed me, they didn't destroy me because I had the wisdom of the books that I'd read from other people. Never undermine the importance of reading. I always say to young people in my book club, one of the purposes of my book club is to help you start a personal library. I started with these young guys in 2019. They have over 50, 100 books now in their personal libraries, because I encouraged them to say, buy books. Instead of buying a new hairpiece, instead of buying 25 inches of a Peruvian weave, you can spend that money buying books. Even today, I'm still addicted to buying books.
You're like me.
And sometimes I don't even tell my wife how much I spend for the book. I just in my personal library. But I think what's important is to encourage young people to become readers. Become aware of what's happening in the world. Become aware of geopolitics. You don't have to be a politician, but know what's happening.
What's happening, yeah.
You know, long ago, I was in a taxi, and this taxi driver, I've never forgotten what that guy said. He said something very profound. He says to me, you must know something about everything and everything about something. I'm like, wow. Imagine getting such wisdom from a taxi driver. You wouldn't think. But what he said to me was so profound. You have to know something about everything that's happening in the world. But there must be that one subject matter where you are the master, where everybody... I usually say to young people, what is it that when other people think of you, they think of that thing? And what is it that reminds people of you when they see that thing? So there must be that one thing that when people see, reminds them of you because you have mastered that one thing, but also know something about everything.
Wow, that's profound. And I think that that's important because it allows you to be a complete human being where wherever you go, whatever space you go in, whatever happens in life, you are able to adapt and to learn. That's powerful. What does the future look like for you? Because I think you've had quite a good experience in life. I mean, you've hit the upper echelons of acting in South Africa. What does the future look like? Are we ever going to Hollywood? Are we moving from acting to producing? What is the future, or what would you like the future to look like for you?
Ngiyayisabi Hollywood. Ngisabu puff date. No, I'm scared of his parties.
I was there already for that one.
Obviously, we've heard stories of what's happening. And
I never used to believe them. It took me a while to believe that a black man that's been that successful would... I always say to people that my thinking of those that have made it, right, to say, when you have a lot of money, what I can expect from you is this person manipulated the currency of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Those are the things I should be expecting to say, hey, this one, he's busy, or this person changed this country, or they did this, But when I looked at this thing, I said, such things that you don't expect them to be stumbling blocks.
Without taking food from my table, we were talking about these things with some fellow thespians. And somebody says, without implicating myself, I can tell you that America is here now. Everything that you thought is happening, everything you thought was a conspiracy in America, he says, it's here now. We spoke earlier on about who's controlling the industry. There's very intentional efforts to direct what is happening down there by someone up there. And if you thought those things that people talk about, who and who did what to get to the top, they said, America is here.
Yeah, and I think that the danger of that is that those of us that are naive need to because I think, I had a podcast with Usoni and she was explaining some stuff, and, I've just been learning more and more to say that we need to stop, because I always say to people that, I grew up in Limpopo and you grew up in KZN. Where we grew up, it was such that the neighbor knew your business.
Yeah.
You would not ask the neighbor's child to undress in front of you, because the neighbor's dad would be at your house to say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
And even we as the community would be there to say, no, this man must be dealt with because what he did, And you sort of come to Joburg and you hear these stories and immediately you think, no, man, if that thing happened, the whole community would be at their house, And you sort of learn that the way we're living in Joburg, it doesn't work like that. The community is not going to go to Hyde Park. The community in Hyde Park has big fences. They don't want to know.
Yeah.
So it had to take a mind shift for me to say, hey, we're not in Limpopo here.
Yes,
we're in Joburg and these things are happening.
Yeah.
And it's important that when one person speaks, we no longer just say, hi, man. We sit down and we say, how do we protect people? How do we get people out? How do we, and we do those things? Because I think it's unfortunate that only people wake up now when these things are happening.
Yeah.
And when we wake up, it's like we're all surprised.
Yeah.
But maybe to talk about it, to say, my question always is to say, why is it that it takes so long? I'm listening to this Puff Daddy story, and I'm hearing people say, I saw a video where the neighbor was saying, no, man, this guy used to bring buses of kids here, And I'm thinking, how? But if we're in Limpopo and somebody brought a bus of children to their house, the neighbor would be looking over the fence and say, what's going on there? Or they'd be knocking to say, oh, why is my kid also not here? And they want to know the program of that day, And I'm thinking, are we as society getting to the point where we are all sort of...
Nagi indaba zakho.
Hey.
We even have t-shirts that say ungenapi. So why should people mess with try to help you because ungenapi?
And that element of ubuntu is dying.
It's dead.
Ay.
It's dead. And for me, what hurts even more is that we can no longer say white people are doing this to us. Maybe they are doing a certain percentage to us because they need to hold on to what they have. The haves need to hold on to what the have-nots want from them. But a lot of it, we are doing it to ourselves. I'll just make a very crude observation and a very sad one, but I will say it, even if bayang shaya next time yekas. Go to any township and witness how filthy Ikasi is. There are no white people there. The municipal managers are black people. And the people living in the space are black people. But amakasa ngcolile. Because people don't care anymore. I live here, I just cross the street, I dump. Nobody cares anymore. Why ikasi lingcolile sikhona? Because siyaclean emzini yabelungu. And siyaclean masiye emzini yabelungu masiya ema-company njengoba sise-Branston namhlanje nami ngigezile ngiclean. Why do we have this mentality of being so destructive as black people? And then we expect other people to love us. Why kumele asincanywe? Because nathi asiyincanywa thina self. I can drive here and phuzi drink endleleni and keep the can in my car. The moment ngene ekasi ngivula iwind. Black man destroying his own environment. Why is it that when a black man is angry, he destroys his environment? Ushisa isikole. Ushisa iklinikhi. Kusasa you need to take your grandmother to the clinic and you are complaining, the government ikona manje. But you burnt the school. Akusena ma-report ekasi. Because kunephara nje libhizi elwasika wonke because there's something they need to take from there. Every 2 seconds ugesi uhambile because somebody has stolen ama-cables. Why ungeze eBranston uzontshontsha ama-cable? Why wantshontsha igasi la kuhlala khona wena? Why singazithandi kangaka? So the solutions for me, it's black love. It starts by loving myself and loving my neighbor. Just like our Kokobet used to do. We had a saying, umuntu ngabantu. What happened to that? Because it's America. We want to be like Americans. We want to dress like them. We want to talk like them.
And the truth is, Americans want to be like us.
They want to come back here.
Yeah, Americans are like, how are you guys so...
You know, I was shocked the one time these guys were talking about Americans. I can't remember exactly who it is, but one of the musicians was saying, he's moving to South Africa, he's going to Cape Town. I'm like, these guys see what we have, but we don't. You know, they want to live in America, Tina, we want to go there. Have you seen what Philadelphia looks like? Philadelphia, it's called the city of zombies because wonke umuntu is like half dead. But we want what they have. We don't realize what we already do have.
What we already have and what we should be protecting.
What we should be protecting.
Sure.
You know? We don't, unfortunately, we don't see what we have. Interestingly, I don't know if I'm going off at a tangent. You saw what Putin revealed this past week.
What did you reveal?
The identity of Jesus Christ.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And we've been saying, this is a white man's thing. The white man brought this thing. The Jesu Mthobe, blah blah blah. You know. Now that we know whether it's true or not, I don't know. But if it is true, now that we know who Christ was black, are we now going to claim him? You know? So there's just something we don't like about ourselves. So we can say, maybe it was white, maybe it was black, we don't care. But the truth is, there's something we just don't like about our color. Tina, ourselves. There's something we just don't like about ourselves. The moment we start loving how we were made, maybe even in Olezetu, we will embrace them. I'm sure
Yeah, no, but you know what keeps me hopeful is that there is a generation that's coming up, that's rising to fix these things. I think though that the points you've raised are so important because this generation must protect the authenticity of what we're doing so that we don't have America planting seeds. The moment a young person is a director, immediately we're hearing, hey, no security even knows. But no. Every day there
Yeah.
are people who audition in his house, and we're wondering how we thought you audition. So I think it's important that we curb this sort of behavior. It would have been my wish, to say that what you said in the beginning, that voice, abo baba, abo mama, abo gogo, who are able to reprimand the next generation, and it doesn't become a thing of just saying, they were just saying, but it becomes a thing of, let's go and listen to what they say. I really hope that we see more of that people watching can realize the value of that, because I think you are right in saying we were built by those people.
Yeah.
And
We need we need to be intentional about the structures that we build. We need to be intentional about the society, the kind of society we need to live in, that we are building. When you know what you are building, even the resources that you get will go towards that one direction.
Yes.
But if you don't know what you are building,
it's where,
somebody is about to get a big tender somewhere, and they're gonna have money to spend. Hopefully, after watching this and many other podcasts that are speaking positive, I hope somebody can just take and say, you know what, I'll take 500,000 rands and go and do this project with young people. And I'm saying this with the full knowledge. There are people who are doing that. I know people who are doing so much good out there, but they don't even go to social media and say, I'm doing this. Don't go around telling everybody the good things. Yeah, the left hand should never know the secrets of the right hand. But I think it's time that people show goodness, the good things that they do, not for the likes. But if you're doing something good, promote goodness. You go to Twitter, people don't mind going to Twitter and saying, hey, when a hairstyle yakho enjanjanjani, and then they tag you because they want you to see so much negativity. We need to cut down on this negativity and on this so-called PhD, pull him down or pull her down syndrome. We love pulling each other down. We need to start telling a different narrative now. We need to tell a different story about ourselves, but it starts with Black love.
Wow. This has been very profound. I think as we bring it to a close, I want to find out, you're somebody who loves the scriptures. What is maybe one or two scriptures that you live by and that you find inspiration by? Those scriptures that you know that these are my go-to scriptures. What are those scriptures for you?
Matthew 16 verse 26. For what does it profit a man that he should gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange of his soul? Basically, Isaiah 60, arise, shine, your time has come. Wow. Arise, shine, your glory has come. It's time for people to arise from the ashes. A lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have been hurt by the things that have been done to them. And I never want to undermine people's experiences. But there comes a time when you have to arise and shine. I was speaking to a young person, Izolo, actually, yeah. So this young person, as we were talking, he says, I hope one day my dreams come true. I said to him, listen, you're a talented young man. God gave you this talent because he wants to be glorified in you. If you don't arise and shine, God will never get his glory of seeing one of his sons shining because of the talents and the gifts that he gave to him. So when you need to stop thinking, maybe God doesn't want me to shine. No, God has got your back. You're his boy. He wants you to shine so that he can go around and boast about you. Look at God boasting about you, Job. Have you seen my servant Job? So God has given us blessings and talents, not just for us to drive nice big cars and live in secluded big houses, but he wants to be glorified in us. Interestingly, somebody was talking about Umosa saying to Nkulunkulu, show me your glory. And somebody said, what if when you ask God to show you his glory, he says, I've already been glorified in you.
Wow.
So when we use our talents and our skills, the old man gets very excited because he gets the glory from us. So I would say to somebody, arise, shine, your time has come. Whatever you may have been going through, Nkulunkulu has created something in you, that spirit of resilience. It's enough. Yes, what they did to you is wrong, but it's time now to arise and shine, because so many other people will see your light, khona scripture as well as city, by people seeing your light, God is glorified.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to arise and shine. And yeah, we Dagela, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop calling yourself Skepsel Samudimo. Yeah, give yourself a new name. I was saying to young people the other day, I want you to write down a list of names and then choose one. What is your name? Not Muzi, not Tsepo, not Tabo, but what is your name? What name do you want to call yourself? That a name that will resemble your destiny. A name that will put you a step forward. Whenever you call yourself by that, it takes you a step closer to your destiny. What name do you want to call yourself? Arise, shine, and give yourself a new name for your glorious come.
Wow, what a powerful way to end it. Thank you so much for coming, and indeed we're going to do that. Everybody who's tuned in, ensure that you arise, you shine, and give yourself a good name or a new name. Thank you.
And cut.
Wow, that was...
Thank you.
No, that was amazing. That was truly amazing.